Content warning. This documentary covers sensitive criminal case material, including child abuse and sex trafficking. Some descriptions may be disturbing to listeners. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Greetings and welcome to all our dear listeners. Welcome to the 7th episode of the documentary series, The Epstein Files, Roots of a Nightmare. Thank you for being with us this far on this journey through this complex and dark case. Today, we turn to the latest developments in this case. Developments that have occurred in recent months and show that this case, 6 years after Epstein's death, remains alive and expanding. In previous episodes, we followed Jeffrey Epstein's journey from childhood in Brooklyn to the heights of power on Wall Street. We examined his network of influence with Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell. We traveled to the island of horror in the Caribbean. We analyzed his mysterious death in a Manhattan jail cell. We reviewed his legacy and the fate of his victims and associates. And in the previous episode, we examined the released documents that lifted the veil on new secrets for the first time. Today, we look at the most recent developments in this case. From the arrest of Prince Andrew to the detention of Peter Mandelson, from Ghislaine Maxwell's pardon request to the release of documents revealing new powerful names. Let us journey together into the depths of this story. Chapter 1. The Transparency Act and the release of 3.5 million documents. In November 2025, the U.S. Congress passed a historic law, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. This law required the Department of Justice to release all documents related to the Epstein case, with minimal redactions and without censorship. Senators and representatives who had long called for transparency in this case finally achieved their goal. This law was passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. In January and February 2026, the U.S. Department of Justice released over 3.5 million pages of documents related to the Epstein case. These documents included approximately 180,000 images and 2,000 videos seized from Epstein's properties. This document release was the largest disclosure in U.S. judicial history. News agencies and newspapers around the world immediately began analyzing these documents. The released documents were organized into 12 classified data sets. Sets 1 through 8 included summaries of FBI interviews and police reports from Palm Beach, Florida, from 2005 to 2008. This was the period when local authorities first investigated Epstein. Set 9 included email evidence, including private correspondence between Epstein and prominent individuals, along with internal Department of Justice communications about the controversial 2008 non-prosecution agreement. This agreement granted Epstein broad federal immunity and protected potential co-conspirators. Set 10 included approximately 180,000 images and 2,000 videos seized from Epstein's properties. Much of this content has been heavily redacted to protect the identities of victims. However, critics argue that these redactions may still leave some victims identifiable while keeping the names of the accused hidden. Set 11 included financial documents, flight logs related to travel to Epstein's Island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and asset seizure records. Set 12 included approximately 150 supplementary documents requiring further legal review. Chapter 2. The 60-count indictment that was never filed. One of the most important documents released was a 60-count indictment that federal prosecutors in Florida had prepared in 2007 but never filed. This indictment was prepared against Epstein and 3 unnamed co-conspirators. Imagine 60 charges that could have changed the course of history, but never went anywhere. According to this indictment, from 2001 to 2005, Epstein and 3 other defendants conspired to procure women under 18 years of age to engage in lewd conduct in exchange for money to satisfy the sexual desires of Jeffrey Epstein. This document shows that prosecutors had sufficient evidence to convict Epstein and his associates years ago. The document listed 19 girls under pseudonyms, some as young as 14 years old. They received hundreds of dollars and were sometimes used to recruit other friends. In one instance, Epstein told a girl he was abusing that if she reported it to anyone, bad things might happen to her. These threats show how Epstein kept his victims in fear and silence. One unnamed co-conspirator, according to the document, was tasked with escorting women from Epstein's kitchen to the main bedroom in Palm Beach, where Epstein was waiting. This unidentified accomplice, who was never named, played a key role in Epstein's crimes. But instead of filing this 60-count indictment, federal prosecutors in 2007 reached a non-prosecution agreement with Epstein. He escaped federal charges and served only 13 months in state prison on prostitution-related charges. This became known as the deal of the century. Alexander Acosta, the prosecutor who accepted this deal, later testified before Congress, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and should not be subjected to severe prosecution." Chapter 3. The Arrest of Prince Andrew, First Prince in Modern History. On February 19, 2026, a historic event occurred. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, younger brother of King Charles III and formerly known as Prince Andrew, was arrested by Thames Valley Police. He was the first senior member of the royal family in modern history to be arrested. This news exploded like a bomb in media worldwide. The 66-year-old Andrew was detained at Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. Several unmarked police vehicles were seen at the estate throughout the day, with plainclothes officers outside his residence. Searches were also conducted at addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. Television images captured these historic moments. Thames Valley Police issued a statement. Thames Valley Police has opened an investigation into the offense of misconduct in public office. As part of this investigation, today, February 19th, a man aged around 60 from Norfolk has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, and we are carrying out searches at addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. The man is currently in police custody. Assistant Chief Constable Oliver Wright added, "Following a thorough assessment, we have now launched an investigation into this allegation of misconduct in public office. It is important that we maintain the integrity and objectivity of our investigation. We understand there is significant public interest in this case, and we will provide updates at the appropriate time." Andrew was released on bail after 11 hours of questioning. But this was just the beginning. This arrest followed the release of new documents showing that Andrew had shared confidential government information with Epstein. According to documents released in January, on October 7, 2010, Andrew sent details of his upcoming official trips as a trade envoy to Singapore, Vietnam, China Shenzhen, and Hong Kong to Epstein. On November 30th, he appeared to have forwarded the official reports of those trips, sent by his special assistant, to Epstein immediately upon receipt. These documents show that the relationship between Andrew and Epstein went beyond simple friendship. Chapter 4. Britain and the plan to remove Andrew from the line of succession. Andrew's arrest sparked a wave of public outrage in Britain. A YouGov poll released the Friday after his arrest showed that 82% of British citizens believe Andrew should be completely removed from the line of succession to the throne. Only 6% said he should remain. This statistic shows the depth of public hatred for the former prince. Following these revelations, the British government was considering introducing legislation to remove Andrew from the line of succession. This law, reported by local media, would prevent Andrew from ever becoming king. Although he is eighth in line, even this rank was intolerable to the British people. Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, said his position in the line of succession should be reviewed. Stephen Flynn, leader of the Scottish National Party at Westminster, told The Sun that people would rightly be angry that a man who lied about his friendship with Epstein could still be on the path to becoming head of state. Andrew Bowie, shadow Scottish secretary from the Conservative Party, said removing him from the line of succession would be the right thing to do. The last time the line of succession was changed by law was in 2013. The last time someone was removed from the line of succession by law was in 1936, when Edward VIII abdicated to Mary Wallis Simpson, a divorced woman. Now history was repeating itself. Chapter 5: The Arrest of Peter Mandelson, Veteran Diplomat. Just days after Andrew's arrest, on February 23, 2026, Peter Mandelson, a veteran British diplomat and former ambassador to Washington, was arrested by the Metropolitan Police in London. This was the second blow to the British elite within a week. The 72-year-old Mandelson was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. The charges stem from the latest release of documents related to Epstein. Police said in a statement, "A 72-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office and has been bailed pending further inquiries." Television images showed Mandelson being taken from his home in North London with a man and a woman. Police had searched 2 of his properties earlier this month. These scenes were shocking to the British public. Mandelson is under investigation for allegedly sending sensitive documents to Epstein while serving as a government minister, including during the 2008 financial crisis. Police have not specified which documents are under investigation, but sources close to the investigation say these documents could be highly sensitive. He had been removed from his position as envoy to Washington by Prime Minister Keir Starmer in September 2025, after the initial release of documents related to Epstein revealed the extent of their friendship. This appointment had caused political controversy, with 2 of Starmer's senior assistants resigning. Starmer later apologized to Epstein's victims for appointing Mandelson and accused him of lying during the vetting process about the extent of his connections with Epstein. The law firm Mishkin de Rea, which represents Mandelson, issued a statement earlier this month saying Mandelson will regret for the rest of his life that he believed Epstein's lies about his criminality. Lord Mandelson did not discover the truth about Epstein until after Epstein's death in 2019. The government plans to release tens of thousands of emails, messages, and documents related to Mandelson's vetting process. The government is set to release the first batch of documents in early March. These documents could reveal new dimensions of this case. Global Counsel, the consulting firm he founded, nearly went bankrupt last week as it suspended operations and appointed administrators to try to salvage its assets. Several major clients, including Barclays, Tesco, and the Premier League, have cut ties with the firm in recent weeks. This shows that even allegations can destroy a business empire. Chapter 6: Ghislaine Maxwell and her pardon request to Trump. On February 9, 2026, Ghislaine Maxwell appeared before the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform in a confidential video session. Despite intense public and legislative pressure, she invoked her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and refused to answer substantive questions about her role or knowledge of Epstein's co-conspirators and network. This behavior angered lawmakers. Maxwell's attorney, Arthur Marcus, informed the committee in a letter that she is willing to speak fully and honestly if granted a pardon by President Donald Trump. The attorney emphasized that neither Trump nor Bill Clinton committed any wrongdoing, but only Maxwell can explain the reasons why. The statement read, "If this committee and the American people truly want to hear the story from beginning to end and the truth without filter, there is a direct way. If President Trump grants a pardon, Ms. Maxwell is prepared to explain everything honestly." Committee Chairman James Comer told reporters, as expected, Maxwell refused to answer any questions, invoking the Fifth Amendment. This is obviously very disappointing. We had many questions, including about her crimes and Epstein's and the existence of other potential co-conspirators. Democratic lawmakers argued that Maxwell's statements were an attempt to seek a presidential pardon. Melanie Stansberry, a Democratic representative from New Mexico, said, "It's clear she's angling for a pardon." This pardon request sparked heated debates in American political circles. Chapter 7: Larry Summers' Emails and Controversial Chats. The documents released in January 2026 included numerous emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Larry Summers, former U.S. Treasury Secretary and former president of Harvard University. These emails show the two men gossiping about Donald Trump during his first presidency. These private conversations revealed new dimensions of Epstein's relationships with academic elites. In a May 2017 email, Summers asked, "How guilty is Donald?" and then discussed the idea that Russia helped Trump win the 2016 election, which Summers called likely but not certain. Epstein responded, "Your world doesn't understand how stupid he really is." This conversation shows that the two men insulted the American president in private. In an earlier email from October 2016, Summers asked Epstein, "How likely is the idea that Trump is actually a cocaine user?" Epstein responded, "0." This exchange shows they were also curious about Trump's personal life. In July 2017, Summers wrote to Epstein, "I think your friend is mentally ill." Epstein responded that the person is not my friend, and I've told you that before. Although neither mentioned Trump by name, they continued to discuss his foreign policy actions and whether, in Summers' words, he was better than Hillary. Epstein defended his record, citing cooperation with Israel and India. Previous document releases had shown that Epstein and Summers corresponded for years after Epstein's initial conviction. Summers did not immediately respond to requests for comment. He had previously told CNN that he was deeply ashamed of his correspondence with Epstein. Summers took leave from teaching at Harvard in November, but this shame was not enough to restore his lost credibility. Chapter 8: Allegations Against Trump and White House Response. Among the released documents was a list of allegations related to Trump, prepared by the FBI in August 2025. This list included 16 complaints, many of which appeared to be derived from unverified public reports. The release of this list sparked a wave of controversy in America. According to documents linking Trump to Epstein, one complaint alleged that the U.S. president had raped a 13-year-old girl. An entry in the spreadsheet described a woman who claimed her friend had been forced to perform oral sex on Trump about 35 years ago in New Jersey, when she was allegedly 13 or 14 years old. The report says that girl was also abused by Epstein and was struck after biting Trump. Another complaint alleged that Trump was complicit in the murder of a newborn baby who may have been the product of paid sexual relations involving Trump and others. These allegations were so shocking that even Trump's critics hesitated to accept them. The White House issued a statement in response to these allegations. This collection may contain fabricated or false images, documents, or videos sent in, because anything sent by the public to the FBI was included in the collection released by law. Some documents contain false and inflammatory allegations against President Trump that were sent to the FBI just before the 2020 election. To be clear, these claims are baseless and false, and if they had any credibility whatsoever, they would certainly have been used against President Trump already. A file containing a summary of complaints related to Trump disappeared shortly after its release and then reappeared. In response, a Justice Department spokesman said, "The document was taken offline due to heavy traffic and is now back online." This disappearance and reappearance fueled rumors about document censorship. Chapter 9. New names on the list, powerful figures. The new documents revealed names of other powerful individuals that had never been made public before. Among these individuals were Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, Howard Lutnick, current U.S. Secretary of Commerce, and Jack Lang, former French Minister of Culture. These names show how extensive and international Epstein's network was. Jack Lang, whose name appeared over 600 times in the documents, stepped down from his position as president of the Arab World Institute. This rapid resignation showed he knew the power of these documents. The documents also showed that Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel, and his wife Neely Priel stayed several times in an apartment in New York owned by Epstein. These stays indicated Barak's closeness to Epstein, a closeness that later cost him his job. Documents related to Howard Lutnick also showed that the current U.S. Secretary of Commerce communicated with Epstein through intermediaries in 2011 and 2012. These communications occurred years after Lutnick had said he would never be in the same room with Epstein again. This contradiction called his credibility into question. Chapter 10. Victims' criticism of document censorship. The release of new documents was met with sharp criticism from victims. A group of Epstein survivors and members of Virginia Giuffre's family issued a joint statement condemning the latest release as cruel and what they called a lack of transparency and improper redactions. The statement read, "This latest release is being sold as transparency, but what it actually does is expose survivors. Survivors are having their names and identifying information revealed again, while the men who abused us remain hidden and protected. This is cruel. As survivors, we should never be the ones whose names are revealed, who are scrutinized, and who are heard again, while Epstein's enablers continue to benefit from secrecy. This is a betrayal of the very people this process is supposed to serve." Several survivors told CNN on Friday that they had seen examples of their own names or those of other victims and their information in the files, including those who had been identified by pseudonyms that remained unredacted. These revelations doubled the pain of the victims. Democratic Representative Jamie Raskin expressed concern that many of the redactions seemed unnecessary. He pointed out that the names of prominent individuals like Les Wexner, founder of Victoria's Secret and a known associate of Epstein, had been inexplicably redacted. This while the names of teenage victims remained unredacted. Democratic Representative Ro Khanna, who played a role in passing the transparency law, said after fully reviewing the documents that he had seen the names of 6 powerful men. He asked why the FBI had initially redacted those names and said investigators should be able to question all named individuals to get answers. Chapter 11: Department of Justice and the End of Investigations. Despite the release of millions of new documents, the U.S. Department of Justice announced that it had concluded its investigations and would not file any new charges based on these documents. This decision angered and disappointed victims and the public. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said in an interview, "There are a large number of contacts, many emails, and also many photos. There are terrible photos that appear to have been taken by Mr. Epstein or those around him, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can prosecute anyone." He added that this review is complete, and only a few documents are still being reviewed by a judge. These statements were met with sharp reactions from victims and experts. Matthew Dallek, a political historian at George Washington University, told The Guardian that the documents confirm public suspicion that elites receive special treatment. They are protected from laws that are supposed to apply equally to everyone. Zhang Tingjuan, Deputy Director of the American Studies Division at the China Institute of International Studies, argued that Epstein's sex trafficking operation was not just the act of one man, but evidence of a systematic, elite privilege apparatus. Summary and analysis. In this episode, we examined the latest developments in the Epstein case. Developments that show this case, 6 years after Epstein's death, remains alive and expanding. The release of 3.5 million new documents revealed new dimensions of this network. The 60-count indictment that was never filed showed that prosecutors had sufficient evidence years ago to convict Epstein and his associates. The arrest of Prince Andrew and Peter Mandelson in Britain showed that this case has crossed American borders and shaken Europe as well. For the first time in modern history, a British prince was arrested and a veteran diplomat was detained on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Ghislaine Maxwell's request for a pardon from Trump and her refusal to testify without receiving one demonstrates the political complexities of this case. She is willing to talk, but only if she is immune from punishment. The disclosure of Larry Summers' emails with Epstein and their gossiping about Trump showed how deeply this case has penetrated the highest levels of power in America. The allegations against Trump, though dismissed by the White House as baseless, showed that this case could still cause problems for the powerful. But perhaps the most important point is the victims' reaction to the document release. They who lived in silence for years now have raised their voices. They say their names are still being revealed while the main accused remain hidden. And the U.S. Department of Justice says it has concluded its investigations and will not file any new charges. This decision leaves many questions unanswered. Who else was in this network? Why are some names still redacted? Why, with all this evidence and documentation, is no one else being prosecuted? Final words. The Epstein case is not just a criminal case. This case is a mirror showing us the ugliness of the power system in the modern world. A mirror showing how money and influence can mock justice. Epstein's victims fought for years to have their voices heard. They are still fighting. They say, we should not be the ones whose names are revealed, while the main accused remain hidden. Our duty as human beings is not to forget, to question, to follow up, so that perhaps one day, There will be no more Epsteins who can commit crimes for decades and ultimately die without fully answering for them. In the next episode, we will look at the final lessons of this case. What can be learned from this story for the future? Until the next episode, stay healthy and seek the truth. Sources. This documentary is based on the following reputable sources. Documents released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act in January and February 2026. U.S. Department of Justice report on the Epstein case. CNN reports on the new document releases. Reports from international news agencies including Reuters, Associated Press, and Bernama. Thames Valley Police reports on the arrest of Prince Andrew. Official statements from the White House and Department of Justice. Statements from Ghislaine Maxwell's attorneys before the House Oversight Committee. Thank you for staying with us through this long episode. I know it took a lot of your time, but this case is so complex and deep that it cannot be summarized in a few minutes. So if you've stayed this long, it means you care about the truth. And that is valuable to us. Until the next episode, stay healthy and seek the truth. Goodbye.